I didn't like The Sopranos. Now, I did go into the show with pretty high expectations, but since it's routinely called one of the best shows ever, I think those expectations were fair. At the core of it all, I just never cared about Tony, and since I never cared about the protagonist, everything else felt kinda empty. It's not that I hated Tony either. I think I would have enjoyed the show a lot more if I had genuine rage for his actions, but it wasn't anger. I suppose why most people love the show was viewing Tony's impulsiveness and his apathy for others, but for me, that wasn't interesting. I just didn't feel like he was layered. I never really thought that Tony was in a position where he had to decide between doing the right or the wrong thing. After a few episodes, I pretty much knew Tony was going to do whatever served him in the moment, and he always did. So even when he did things that were surprising in theory, I was never really that shocked. I also cannot understate how much I memed about the lack of police presence in the show. I get it. They're under wiretaps and the pressure of prison was shown, but there are an incredible amount of people who get whacked who aren't a part of the lifestyle. I know they theoretically have police contacts, but it just felt like the craziest plot armor that they could get away with basically anything. Honestly, watching The Sopranos just reinforced my love for one of my favorite shows, The Wire. It is a bit unfair to compare the police presence since The Wire has a huge amount of police characters, but I think the layers that virtually every person in The Wire has is what I look for in a show. There are characters I love, there's characters I hate, and even if I didn't agree with what a character did, I felt that they had some logical reason or moral code that they lived by. I never got that feeling in The Sopranos. Now, I get that a huge part of praise for The Sopranos is the groundbreaking choices the show made. Showing a mobster who was actively in therapy in the early 2000s was game changing, and I'm aware that Tony's role as an anti hero laid the groundwork for characters like Walter White. But while watching the show, it reminded me of what it was like when I watched The Breakfast Club. It's hard to understand the historical impact of something while watching it, especially if that thing is weird, like The Breakfast Club, or kind of boring, like The Sopranos. I do have to mention that The Sopranos did have its moments. Pine Barrens is genuinely hilarious, and the acting on the show is outrageously good. And I can't finish this video without mentioning how fun it is to say "ngabagoo." It's also fair to point out that I binge watched the show, and that probably had an impact on how I took it in. But despite all of my hate, there's something absolutely magical that happened when I watched The Sopranos. It's the reason I stuck through and finished the show, even when my friend who told me to watch it quit. It happened in season 3, episode 2, and this is where I have to give a spoiler warning. The episode starts with Tony seeing his daughter date a black kid. He busts out a derogatory term and then faints. It's pretty funny. But the majority of the episode is about a funeral. A character who's almost universally hated dies, and despite their explicit wishes against one, a funeral is conducted for them. There's rambling from a person who's obviously high, yelling from a guy that's quiet pretty much the entire series, and some good old-fashioned Tony Soprano frowns. But the sheer awkwardness that this one scene portrays is immense. My words don't do it justice, but I literally cringed and squirmed while watching it. And in those 5 minutes, The Sopranos earned my respect. Most shows never produce a moment that causes a visceral reaction, and a show has never impacted me in that specific way. I can't say I'm a fan of The Sopranos or that I will recommend it to anyone, but it showed me what's possible to do as a writer. And for that, I'm happy I woke up one morning and got myself a gun.
Gabagool.
Gabriela says we're down here for the gabagool.
The gabagool.
Gabagool.
Forward ham, salami, gabagool.
Taking the gabagool and shit out of the fridge.
Tony Gabagool, Grandma. It's nothing but fat and nitrates.
Gabagool. Over here.
Let's get back to that gabagool.
Hold this from a slice of gabagool.